DreamHack Open is brought to you by Intel, Corsair, MSI, and Monster Energy.
A Danish derby is brewing here at DreamHack Open Fall as the star-studded Astralis collide with Cadian's Men of Heroic in hopes of making it to the coveted grand final. Of course, with so much on the line, I need some of the best minds in Counter-Strike to be breaking this one down with me. And luckily, I have them in the form of Blair and Maui. Maui, this is literally the banger that we have been waiting for to round off this day. We couldn't ask for anything more here.
Yeah, this is a great matchup. Every time these two teams play against each other, you get the absolute best out of both of them, and it's always just such an exciting seeing the domestic rivalry between the two.
It really is. And with that, we can take a little bit of a recap of our current bracket to see exactly how our two teams ended up here. Of course, we've seen Astralis having an absolute blazer of a time currently through the bracket until they met Vitality yesterday, Blair. And that's what's been dropping them down into this lower bracket to be facing Heroic, who have absolutely survived the gauntlet of that lower bracket.
Yeah, that lost Vitality, especially Nuke, the way they completely dominated Vitality. I think all of us kind of assumed it was over right there, but Vitality mounting the comeback and some holes on the Astralis DOS 2 as well as an overpass being exposed by the side of the Frenchman. So yeah, the gods can bleed is one thing they figured out yesterday.
Yeah, they can indeed. Hopefully they won't be bleeding too much coming into this one because there is so much on the line for this, Maui. And with that, I think we can get into our map vetoes for this series because we were talking about it before we came on air. And there are a few question marks coming into this one, a few ways that this could be leaning.
Yeah, so both of these teams really just have their permaban, so that won't be where the interesting part begins. It's really just Heroic banning Dust 2. Astralis should be banning Mirage, unless there's really any curveballs. I'd say there's a 1% chance that Heroic may be prepared to Dust 2, but I would really doubt it. So let's just see the ban maps here, and it will be the standard bans, of course, for them. Heroic banning out the D2, Astralis banning out Mirage. And this is where it gets a little bit interesting because the last time these guys faced off against each other, and for the last 3 series actually, Heroic has been picking Vertigo, but they've been losing to Astralis on this. So I wonder, are they going to be going with their other home map of Nuke, or will they be trying to maybe punish pick out Astralis here? And they will be switching it up. Okay, they will pick the Nuke there, and Astralis actually going with Inferno. That was not completely expected either, but it's a map that they have been really solid on. So this should bode pretty well for Astralis, given especially what we saw on them on Nuke versus Vitality yesterday.
Yeah, and of course, for us to be rounding out the series here, Sue, then a map that we saw literally going the extra mile indeed in our very opening game of the series for these two teams. So, man, I don't think we could ask for 3 better maps here.
Yeah, I think it went to like 54 rounds or something ridiculous. This Inferno pick from Astralis kind of makes sense. I like the pick from Heroic. I love how they're picking out Nuke. They're like, we are better than you on this map. It's a statement. I won't lie. I expected Heroic to go for Train. And I actually thought Astralis might be flexing the Nuke here, saying like, you know what? We're not going to be scared of you anymore. But the scripts kind of flipped. Inferno for me, Maui, I think it's the safest bet for Astralis, personally speaking. I don't think they want to try Train again after getting wrecked the last time they faced off against them. And Vertigo, considering how 50-50 it was as a decider, makes sense. This one's up in the air. I'm excited. I'm really excited.
I'm super excited indeed. I think with that, we need to focus in on our first map, which will, of course, be Nuke. I know we've been speaking about it a little bit before, but Astralis, you know, they've been looking pretty decent on it. We can see it here, their win percentage, their gun breadth games played. But normally, Maui, we see Astralis actually scared to be playing Nuke against none other than Heroic. So this could be an absolute brawl to start it off.
Yeah, the team that picks Nuke kind of just gets a little bit of a slight L there because you will be starting on the T side for picking this one here. So Heroic will be taking that. And Astralis' CT side, we didn't have to see even that much of it yesterday when they played against Vitality because they had such a dominant T side. So this game is just so interesting to me because Astralis, they should have that great CT side, but even if they don't, I wouldn't count them out.
Yeah, and of course, I want to hear what you guys are saying down in the chat below. Of course, a Danish derby to be rounding things up here at DreamHack Open 4. So I want to hear who you are rooting for to win. But before we get into the nitty-gritty of unpacking our teams, we've got to hear from the wonderful Frankie, who has Dupree on the line.
But he's actually drilled our PK to the box. 1 ages with a 1D.
Simple question to kick things off, Dupree. Just tell me what you think happened in that match against Vitality.
I'm not really sure like what specifically went wrong, apart from that we had a really good game in the first game going to Nuke, and we just had everything under control, and then we felt like in control on Dust 2, but just seemed to be losing all the wrong rounds, and I feel like once we got into the third map, we still felt that we could win, but after that horrible T side where we only got like 3 rounds, I believe it was just too tough. I mean, we had a really good start on the CT side as well, but we had issues going through Astralis, and that just made it too hard to make a comeback like a team against like Vitality. So it was just too rough in the end.
The rest of the team, they've thrown on a Molotov. If they don't get a move on outside of that lineup, and then the double.
It is usually quite close when you guys face off in one of these Danish derbies. Last time you played Vertigo, Train and Inferno on them, and at times it was extremely close. Can we expect a similar veto today?
Yeah, well, I'm not going to really comment on it. The fact is that we feel strong on a lot of the maps and the same thing they do. I think it's a bit of a mind game right now because we've played so many different maps by now, and at this given time, I think it's just about hitting your shots as individuals and also being comfortable around the maps we have to play. So I think we're going to maybe see some surprise from them. They might also see a surprise from us, and that's basically how it always is when you play against each other. When you like in a Danish derby like this, is that everyone knows each other's playtime and your strengths and weaknesses. So I think it's going to be a really good game.
Well, I respect that you gave me some kind of comment, so thank you for talking to me, Dupree, and good luck in the match.
Thank you.
There's the goal for me. And the last player remaining will be Dupree, who's in unbelievable form.
Games indeed, and I expect nothing less from these regional rivals. I think we do have to start off by talking about that game yesterday against Vitality though, Blair, because it's the first loss that we've seen Astralis having here at DreamHack Open 4. So did you have any key takeaways from that series?
Well, the new T side is fantastic. That's a good takeaway. The other 2 maps, of course, Vitality pick going, they were pretty convincingly. And as Maui was gushing over, that shocked look on the T side being the deal breaker for Astralis on Overpass. But we're going to be seeing Nuke here, right? And the one thing which Astralis showed in the Nuke T side is how absolutely brilliant they are. However, that being said, Vitality T side and Nuke, it's very different from what Heroic are going to be throwing their way. You got Tessus towards the ramp. We got players like, of course, can't forget Starvin himself right now, and really vying to be the MVP for the tournament if they do make it all the way to the grand finals. Starvin and Tessus holding these crucial spots. We got Nico and Borup with his auto shotty playing towards upper bomb side, and of course Cadian being float Opper, who, bear in mind, had a 1 point, I think 96 kills or something in that series against Astralis in the beginning of the tournament. This is going to be a challenge for the T side from Astralis.
It is indeed. And just honing in a little more on the players from that Astralis side, we've really been seeing Dupree coming out in such a consistent force, haven't we, Maui? In pretty much every single series he's been playing here.
Yeah, Dupree has really stepped up his game in this tournament. I am just super impressed with just how rapidly he's able to kill anybody that appears on his screen. And he was really responsible for a lot of those opening frags in that Nuke match versus Vitality, or at least just running into the bomb sites when they needed to bust open, especially towards that A bomb site. He was so stellar. And man, his just defense is so on point too. Everything that Dupree is doing is just perfect. And usually Device is the player we're gushing about for how he's able to play the early round, mid round, late round. But Dupree, to me, he's not even letting Device get to the late round. He's just killing everybody.
He is indeed. And I think one note that we've got to make about this current roster of this Astralis is obviously Esatag. As you so aptly put it, Blair, this is going to be his one last hurrah, his swan song with this roster, and potentially the last time he's going to be wearing an Astralis jersey if they don't make it to the finals tomorrow.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing we noticed from the side of Astralis was he hasn't really impressed. Like, we know what he can do, right? If you look at the previous tournaments, he has been fantastic. Yesterday, I feel like there were a few mistakes being made here and there, which you traditionally don't see from a team like Astralis, and especially from a player like Astralis. So, you know what? If you want to go out on the high note, this is his chance at redemption. Maybe this could be the final game from Astralis, where he just pops off and just kind of shows why he has been picked up by the Colossus.
It is going to be indeed. But of course, on the other side of the server, it's going to be Heroic. And we had a few quick grabs from Stan ahead of this game.
We've not really seen Nuke go too aggressively. When they have, they've been dealt with, just getting slapped right in the face by the Orpus Dawn, who's gone in for another. It's a 3K.
Brilliant, well done. Thank you so much for joining me. Now we've got to talk about your matchup against Astralis, because you did lose Vertigo to them in, I think it was something like quadruple overtime earlier on in this event. Do you think it's worth the risk of picking it against them again?
We played them 3 times now, picked Vertigo all 3 times. The first time we won pretty convincingly, and the 2 other times we had a big lead and we just threw it away, to be honest. So I don't know what will happen, but I think that we are the better Vertigo team.
Go in and try and retake, or do we back out and say they will be going for it? And so far, they're paying with it in blood.
You have so much firepower on your side. Obviously, every time we see you play, Tessus is absolutely on fire at the moment. But Astralis do have more experience. So how do you think that firepower can overcome Astralis's big old brains?
Sometimes the communication can be a bit hectic against Astralis, because it's like a big match for us and for Astralis as well, because we're like kind of a rivalry right now between who's the best in Denmark, and all the fans here in Denmark are watching and so on. I just think we need to calm down and just take it like another match.
Good luck with the Consolidation finals, Storm. I think it's going to be a close one.
Thank you very much.
Now, he could come and deny the bomb plant. He's a little bit too late, but still takes the head off with both hampers rest. And now, Borrow.
Cool, calm, and collected. That's the aim of the game from this Heroic side. And being that we just saw them this morning taking that win over NIP to get here, Maui, Stan was the name on all of our lips, because he's looked so consistent, not only in that game, but throughout the entirety of the tournament. And he's only looking to get hotter now.
Yeah, Stan is a player that, for me, is taking the mantle for the best player on Heroic, and it actually just isn't even that close. On CT side and T side, this guy is finding opening picks for the team. Tessus, Nico have been doing excellent work with their rifles, but Stan picking up that secondary op has added another dimension to the CT side of this Heroic lineup, and at times, I feel like he's opping better than Cadian. It kind of pains me to say that, because Cadian has been so good for so long, but honestly, Stan has just really impressed me, and his adaptability in matches, whether he's getting punished for being too aggressive, or sometimes maybe he thinks he needs to take the fight to the opponents, everything just works for this guy, and he knows when to change up his own personal tempo in the match.
Yeah, he really does. And I think what's so scary about this matchup, you brought it up earlier, Blair, Cadian was the real determining force last time these two teams faced, way earlier on in the group stage of this tournament. But now we've seen the likes of Stan stepping up consistently. We've seen the likes of Tessus stepping up consistently against NIP. So this could be such a game changer in terms of this rematch of these two Danish sides.
Oh, absolutely, right? That first game was Cadian having probably one of the best series he's ever had. And it wasn't, like, the rest of them played very well as well, but not at the level Cadian did. But like you mentioned, Staven and Tessus have really grown into this tournament right now. Staven even overtaking Cadian when it comes to overall rating in this tournament. And like you said, like Maui mentioned, that dual op setup is going to be instrumental. Staven has just been fantastic overall. And I think even if you look at the stats for the team as well, Heroic are the second place team when it comes to most multi-kills. I'm talking about players in a round getting multi-kills, right? And that comes down to Tessus, Staven, and Cadian. These 3 musketeers, if they pop off here, Astralis is not going to have an easy time.
Yeah, a troublesome trio indeed. I'm wondering from your perspective, Maui, going into this first map, which will of course be Nuke, a map that we've seen both teams having successes on, where are you going to be your key focuses in terms of this Heroic side if they want to be taking this first win?
I think it's got to be on mini control. I think that's something that both of these teams are going to be fighting for. It really opens up the A bomb site there. So that's going to really be up to, it kind of depends who Heroic put there at times. I know Tessus probably won't be over there, but I know Nico likes to spend a lot of time in that area. And especially if Cadian's trying to help him outside with his opping prowess, and if Stown on his rotations is there as well. I think that's just going to be a hot point of contention for the map, and whoever really controls that, whether it's on the T side or the CT side, should have an easy time breaking this map open.
And with that, I think we can begin to compare two players from these lineups here. Blair, I know you've selected Device and Cadian, I believe, for this head-to-head.
Yeah, Cadian, because you cannot ignore the performance he had in that in the last time these two teams played, right? If he even plays at 60-70% of that level, I think it's going to be fantastic considering how well Tessus and of course Stavin have been playing for his team. On the other side, Device, part of the double D action from the side of Astralis, and you know what, Dupree has been fantastic, can't take it away from him. I think Maui hits a nail in the head that every time you see Dupree from his opponent's POV, the guy instantly dies. It is ridiculous. At the same time, Device, he had a slow start to the tournament, but as it has progressed, he has slowly managed to show what he is made of. Mr. Cool himself, and this battle of the ops, it is going to be fantastic.
Of course, and with that, I think we need to start cementing our predictions for this last best of three of the day. This is going to be an absolutely furious one to be rounding off our day here at DreamHack Openfall, and I'm wondering, Maui, who on earth are you going to be starting for this one?
Oh, man, I feel like everything is in the favor of Heroic except for the veto, and that's where I think Astralis is going to take this one. I feel like the veto just came out too nice for Astralis here, so I'm going to have to pick them, and it pains me to do that because Heroic are on fire lately.
They really have been looking so on fire. Blair, are you going to be siding with Heroic or following Maui's footsteps for Astralis for this one?
You know what? I thought Maui would go with Heroic, and I thought I'd probably be, repping the Astralis flag, but just to make it interesting. Even though I believe in Maui, I think the map veto, the nuke pick coming in from Heroic, I think it's going to be favoring Astralis here. But I believe in a smiling assassin. I love the little bit of attitude that Heroic have. I'm going to go with these guys. Let's see what they got.
Oh, I love this. I love getting a split desk up here. I'm so torn. My head's going one way, my heart is going the other way. You know what? I've got to do it. I've got to go with Heroic just from what we saw earlier. They looked so stellar, and I'm hoping that momentum will be continuing over into this final best of three of the day. Of course, we've got to check in the Twitch chat as well to see exactly where they are standing for this vote. 81% going with Astralis Maui. You got to be pretty happy with that. The back in a Twitch chat there, right?
No, we lost. We lost. Twitch chat voting for it. It's over for us.
They've jinxed it for you.
Yeah. They jinxed it.
I'm interested to hear, though, from your perspective, obviously coming into this, Nuke being that first map, are there any kind of key players that you want to be focusing on from that Astralis side?
Absolutely, Dupree. Dupree was just breaking open everything, it felt like, in that Vitality match yesterday, and I expect him to do the same, or at least try to, against Heroic today.
Yeah, I think that's all we're going to be looking for from that Astralis side, but hopefully Heroic can give them some answers back. With that all being settled, I think the only thing left to do is get on into this game. An absolute banger to be rounding out our day, and a clash for the spot at the grand finals with a little bit of regional rivalry sprinkled on top of it. Can Heroic claim revenge, or will Astralis repeat history? Find out after this.
It's all about Denmark in our final best of three, and what will be the final best of three for one of these two teams. Astralis take on Heroic, and I've got to say as well, Tom, this is a game that on paper could be absolutely awesome, especially with the maps that we've been gifted across.
Oh, if this isn't an absolute banger, I'm going to be more disappointed than any other match in this entire tournament. The last time they played, the first map went to over 50 rounds. So I'm expecting this to go tooth and nail, and I imagine both of these teams will as well. I think Dupree put it best in saying it doesn't matter what the maps are, the veto doesn't matter either. It's who hits their shots and who turns up on the day, because that's the thing with these two teams. They both have a really deep map pool. They're both constantly working to improve and get better. Some even trying to work with 7 different players, you know? So I'm looking at this. It is potentially maybe S-Tag's last game. We don't know, depending on how it goes. So yeah, everything to play for. A spot in the grand final, maybe even some revenge along the way. It is time to get into Nuke, Vince.
Oh, it most certainly is. A map that both teams are more than happy to play. And as they said on the desk, the fact that Heroic start on the T side may not bode very well for them, as Astralis' CT side is known for being so very solid. And May just kicks things off with a briskly put in one tap. Attack now lighting up the scoreboard with 2 of his own. And just like that, the round's done. They've only lost 2 HP collectively. Astralis off to a cracker.
I can't deal with this again. Like last time they started on the T side, we were building this up to be a mammoth of a match, and then they destroyed Vitality on it, and they started off in a similar fashion. Now, this is where things get interesting for me, in all honesty, because I actually think both of these teams have almost paved the way for themselves on the T side of this map. Like, sure, the CT side, I think a lot of different rosters can play well, but it's the Danes that have sort of shown that this map is not really anywhere near as CT-sided as it used to be. We used to sit there going, oh, the pistol rounds will define whether or not you get 2 or 3 rounds in the first half, or maybe 0. Like that was how this map used to work. I'm thankful for the changes that were made. It's made it an exciting map to watch. Now, Astralis have gone very heavy on the rifles. Great for winning the round, but it means they have to keep things nice and clean. Glaive, he's looking to get aggressive here and has Device alongside him. Not a kill in 2 rounds for the side of Heroic, and Astralis are here to play.
Yes, I'm getting a bit of deja vu. I know it's early days, but yesterday they absolutely dismantled Vitality 16-4 on Nuke. And it was every bit as one-sided as that scoreline would suggest. Now, of course, Heroic have plenty of opportunities to bounce back, but as you highlighted, Tom, not a single casualty. Great news with their very rifle-heavy buy that they picked up, and now there's only a P250 on a couple players and a few flashes sprinkled in for good measure. Big grenade damage as well, tossed in towards the ramp from Attack. They mentioned that he's not exactly been top of the scoreboard and taking all the plaudits, but he's been solid when he's been called upon. And you feel like he may be called upon again ramp a few times. He does go down without any casualties. Burrock survives on 2 HP, still will heavily favor Astralis, but they can maybe at least make this a little bit more economically damaging than the previous 2 rounds have been. Heroic still yet to get on the bomb.
What?
That's a team kill. Thorn somehow kills Burrow. I didn't quite catch that. Nico's burnt to a crisp. Bomb has been dropped down, and the rest of the pieces fall into place. What happened there?
That
How
was
did
a stray bullet. That was a stray bullet, 100%. I think that was who we were watching at the time, and he was aiming down at the player running across, and I think there was just one stray bullet that flew off and ended up killing his teammate. That's a bit of bad luck. What I will mention to you, Vince, that's actually quite interesting to me because of how dominant. Yeah, it was just, well, as you said, a stray bullet. Yeah. But over the matches we've seen this year from Astralis versus Heroic, the lowest amount of rounds that Heroic have got is 12. So they always make it close every single time. In fact, the only dominant maps have been in favor of Heroic, with a couple of 16-7 victories going back to Pro League Season 12. So that should at least make you feel a little bit better, but it could also mean that it's been coming. And S-Tag already going to be kicking things off. Dupree as well with the SMG. Well, let's put it this way. Astralis have been very good at proving stats wrong so far this tournament, with obviously Zywoo's 91.7% not going too well when it came to Nuke. But we'll see, because this is already a bit damning going into their first fire round. It's looking so clean. Dupree already, and adding another to the death toll after his MP9 gets upgraded to an AK. He's going to go walking through. All right. Maybe a little bit much for my liking, but hey, he's feeling confident.
Keep Heroic on the back foot. Does get caught, though, from Squeaky. It was Dupree yesterday that was really leading the charge alongside Device. And yeah, as you highlighted, Tom, only 3 or so weeks ago, it was actually Astralis on the receiving end of a battering. They lost Nuke to the hands of Heroic 16-7. So in recent memory, they do have a bit of data to go off. I don't know how much Astralis have learned from that loss. Obviously, Glaive's been back a little bit longer now. and the troops seemingly like they're getting their act together. It's another very convincing, comfortable rifle round that goes the way of Astralis. And Storm on -1, unfortunate with that P250 team kill earlier on, but it just goes to show the complete lack of kills that they've actually picked up on Heroic, and so we move into round 5.
That's ridiculous. 25% of all of Cadian's kills at DreamHack 4 before this game were versus Astralis, and that just proves how long that game was. As said, like one map went 28-24, so obviously those stats were padded, but he had a mammoth series. Like I would go as far to say I think that's the best match I may have ever seen Cadian play. He got almost 100 kills across the 3 maps. He went 97 and 59. The next best in the server was Dupree with 81. And you have to remember, Astralis won that series. So he got plus 38 and lost.
Pretty absurd, isn't it? But so far, shut down, as have the rest of Heroic. Looks like a bit of a technical issue maybe coming into play here. Players deep in thought and trying to figure out what the issue is. In terms of the buy here, though, as well, Tom, as we move into round 5, it's not as if Heroic have tons of money at their disposal, looking like more of a half buy.
Ordered buy it. Sorry, I don't understand why his room's so dark. Like, turn some lights on, buddy. This gotta be bad for your eyes.
See, this is how you know you're getting old, Tom. I see that and I'm like, isn't that straining his eyes? Isn't that just wrecking him? He doesn't care. He feels comfortable. And I'm just thinking his eyes are burning.
Maybe we've been playing wrong. Actually, I say that. I do exactly the same thing. But you know what? My eyes aren't quite as valuable as the talent of Tesses. By acting like his parents in this situation. But the pause has ended. Device looking to go straight back. Like the break didn't change anything. This man on Nuke looked ridiculous as we saw him. Like Dupree definitely took the star of the show, but Device was ruining anybody that came into his path, including Zywoo on this map. Overpass was also a great map for Device. Obviously, this round is just pistols, but at the same time, you want to be getting something done, Heroic.
Yeah, even though Dupree started to outshine Device towards the end, Device at one point, I want to say, had 11-1 and something like 180 ADR early on against Vitality. He was the linchpin early on in those rounds to just set everything in motion, and then it became the Dupree show when things got a little bit more scrappy. Esatag onto Stown, who only with a pistol wasn't really expecting too much out of that. Cadian goes down to Device. That's a 3K for the star player on Astralis. Now Tessis, he's not going to fare too much better. 5-0. And another clean sweep round. That's what, 3 out of 5, I think, where Astralis have not lost a single player.
Astralis are looking scary, to say the least. I will say, of all the teams who've seen this tournament, I think Heroic are definitely the best at coming back. Like, they seem so resilient. And in terms of mental fortitude for such a young team, they have a lot of it. So I don't think they're going to be crumbling anytime soon. They knew picking this map that they would be going up against a powerhouse over the last 3 months. Astralis have a 93% win rate on this map. They have 1 loss, and that is against Heroic. Now they're already very close to doing better than they did last time, Vince, and this is a much faster take. This is what I love to see with this Heroic roster. Dupree didn't even notice they'd walked into the site. I don't know if the grenades shrouded his judgment a little bit, but that's round done already.
What the hell is Tessis' sensitivity? It was like he was spinning around 360, looking at all the angles at once. He's got eyes in the back of his head. He's a chameleon. And with those opening picks, as you said, the round is over. So they waited a while, Heroic, but finally they have struck. And it's a fast play and it catches Astralis. And I completely agree with you. I think Heroic are one of the most tenacious teams. I mean, just go back to the previous best of 3 that we casted. They got battered on Vertigo, came back, won train 16-3 like nothing had happened. This team has no problems when it comes to rebounding. So definitely don't write them off. And that round is more indication as to exactly why that needs to be taken into account. They do say 3 guns, and because of how flawless these rounds have been, Astralis have tons of cash at their disposal. So they're looking at 2 or 3 more rounds before they have to think about saving. Or economy, I should say.
I'm pretty sure this is a reference that not many people will get. It would probably just be Blair that will be giggling away. But I do wonder if he actually has high sensitivity or if he's got like Zoking arms. I'm sure you've seen Zoking play. If you haven't, I haven't watched enough Asian Counter-Strike. The man plays really low sensitivity, but it looks like his mouse is alive and he's currently fighting to hold on to it. It is very impressive. And the fact that he manages to play as well as he does is something that still blows me away. If you haven't seen it, I'm sure if you Googled like Zoking playing Counter-Strike, it will come up and you can enjoy what everybody else. It is, I think it's spelled Zhoking. So you might not have got that one off the bat, but there you go. 5-1. We've got another technical pause, unfortunately. It does give a little bit of a break to either side, and obviously the way it works in online tournaments, there's not really the harshly enforced rules about talking in between. So they should be able to have a little bit of a natter about what they're going to change, what they're going to do. And for Heroic, this almost like they love their tactical pauses because firstly, they have those moments where a lot of the time they'll just go for another very aggressive, fast play. And even when you think even when you beat them, we saw it on Overpass earlier in the day, even when you beat them on a round and you think that that's when they're going to stop doing that, they'll just do it again just to try and catch you off guard. And I think it's a calling style that only ever works if you have full faith in your in-game leader. And it was actually one of the things that I always respected quite a lot about Freakazoid is when he was working with Sean Gares, that was actually where we saw some incredible play out from someone like him, because he was obedient. He would just do exactly what Sean said. And it's what we're seeing from Heroic right now is that if Cadian makes a call, it's gospel. They will do it, whether it's ridiculous, as we've seen previously in tournament, 4 players running up mid-vertigo with P90s. If he makes that call, that's what they're doing. And it makes this team so terrifying. I do wonder, maybe in the future, if we do see some of these members part ways, I hope it doesn't happen, but I wonder if these same individual players will have as much success with maybe an in-game leader they don't necessarily respect, or one not at the same level as someone like Cadian.
Well, that stat is kind of what Tom touched on before.
Too slow, Elliot. Come on.
Astralis have only lost once in recent memory, and that was to the hands of Heroic. It was the 16-7 loss. So already Astralis nearly posting the same amount of rounds very early on as they did last time. Hopefully this technical issue is nothing too serious. It has lasted a little while, so it's always a bit of a concern, but Heroic will have AKs and plenty of utility allocated to them. They had enough for an AWP. They decided not to drop the AK and upgrade to that, which is understandable. Might want to keep themselves mobile and get in the face of Astralis again.
Yeah, I think on this map especially, and unless you're literally going to be working picks outside, or maybe going for one of those like cheeky plays where you blow up the door and try and get Cadian to get an opening pick, I think it's very, very specific AWPers that will be going for like aggressive plays. One I actually really enjoyed watching was in the previous iteration of Envy during the North American Pro League was Nifty. The way he played outside was almost just like a battle AWP. Like he would just run outside and post up and just try and find opening picks, and the rest of his team almost worked it as a completely separate entity to him. And it was really interesting because he used it to almost hold off any rotations, which is something Cadian would also do at points. But yeah, definitely a different sort of AWPing to what we normally see on this map, which is basically just to try and work openers.
There's always that age-old conversation as well about Heroic and Astralis and North as who's the best Danish team. But honestly, I don't think that's really relevant anymore. I think at this stage you say who is the best team out of these two squads. I think Heroic have got to that point where they could make an argument for like we're actually breathing down the neck of Astralis to just be the outright best. Not just about Denmark. We're not in a small pond anymore. We're in the ocean. You want to take this for ourselves and become the apex predators.
Yeah, I think that the interesting thing has been like with this online period is we have seen the rise of a lot of different rosters and being able to sort of practice from home. We've seen the teams that are willing to put a lot more time into the game and They're teams that have now started to pull in boot camps because they realized how important it will be. And it definitely shows the differences, like Fnatic, obviously having a much better performance this tournament than what we've seen recently. Also, the likes of NIP note that they were also on a boot camp during this event. They played very well now, having their full roster back. Vitality as well. Well, so far, they've been the best team in the tournament. They're waiting in the grand final for both of these two teams. I think Heroic are the only ones out of the top 5 even that are, well, maybe a big playing, I think bigger on a boot camp. I'm not sure. But either way, out of the top 5, I think Heroic are the only ones that are actually still sticking at home, but have obviously just been grinding it and seem to still make things work. And it was even something mentioned by Storm, the fact that him playing at the offices, even just that, even though he was on his own, he didn't have any of his mates around him, that's still enough for him to perform at a higher standard. So I do wonder if there are tournaments coming up for Heroic where they might opt to try and play on a LAN setting, because obviously they are all in Denmark, so they don't have any of the problems that some of these international rosters like FaZe might have, or even if you look at like G2 or someone like that. So we'll see. Maybe they'll do that for upcoming tournaments. Maybe they won't need it.
We are back into the action though. Technical issues have been remedied. And Heroic keeping with those AKs as we mentioned. Meanwhile, Astralis, 2 orcs. All picked up on device. Plenty of money still in the bank. Glaive using that smoke to allow him the opportunity to try and fire out. We've already seen device in this very position earlier on with an M4. This time it's the AWP and it's the same result again. He tries to repeat, but the next 2 kills go the way of Heroic. And now they look to try and rummage through the smoke. Glaive tries to pincer into action with a double spray, but he only can get 1. And now Dupree stands up, tries to deliver, but it's him next on the chopping block, leaving Essetag 1 on 3. He's dropped the bomb down, but his head gets cleaved off, and Heroic strike twice in a row.
Yeah, the way that Heroic throw their smokes outside also makes it fairly easy for them to isolate a lot of these duels. Like they end up pushing through the initial one, and then it takes very aggressive plays for the CT side to try and hold on to that control. Now, for Device, obviously that first kill works out in his favor. The re-peek's risky, but at the same time, you don't normally expect to just be insta-domed by someone facing back out, especially when they've had to turn onto the angle. And then from then onwards, it just became a trading for Heroic, which I think is something that they're going to do very, very well. So second round on the board. The thing is, with the save that came through previously and the amount of money that was actually in play already for the side of Astralis, I imagine there is still going to be an investment back into this round from them. So it's a slightly extended break, but I imagine once again there will be a buy.
Yes, indeed, there shall be. Unfortunately, that does mean there is another technical issue, probably the same one, I'd imagine, to do with networking, which is always a bit of a nightmare. But it does also put the momentum a little bit back in favor of Heroic, I'd say. I mean, after Astralis take a quick 5-5-0, a few timeouts here now, and this is where that resolve, that concentration will be tested. Heroic have obviously already played today, a best of 3, which was started, I believe, Danish time at 1 p.m. We're now getting towards the night time. So these guys have been battling away for the entirety of the day. Astralis have been able to sit back and basically watch, try and pick up some tells, maybe some reads, and spring them into action. We'd love to break down the game so far, Tom, but we haven't really seen a great deal, to be honest. So there's not really much to say.
But I think the interesting thing that we could mention is obviously the main reason that everybody's here. The money's nice. Also, you've got some Pro Tour points on offer, which are always fantastic. But the main thing is the RMR points. And for both of these teams, it's a slightly different story. Obviously, both right near the top of the moment after this event, currently in 3rd and 4th, but that's all subject to change based off this match. The other thing as well is we know that Astralis are about to make another change back to Zipic. So they're going to take a pretty nasty hit to their points when that comes through. So they're looking to try and really bolster things up, currently in a legend position. But as said, with that change and with the points that both them and Heroic will intertwine depending on who wins this game. So definitely going to be interesting. You've got Big now in 5th place, and for some teams it really is going to be fairly damaging, like if obviously all the rumors are true, which I imagine they are at this point, with Nico like joining G2, if that's going to be for a change rather than just adding him in as a 6th member, which I'll be honest, I'm not sure Nico would be signing too much for a contract. If it was like, yeah, you'll probably play. I imagine someone's going. Then that's going to be them taking a hit. And they're currently in 7th place. So there could be some rises. And there's some teams, for example, like OG. OG didn't even play the first RMR event. They had a 0 points. But you have to consider, if we're about to see like G2 make a move, Astralis have to make a move, OG might be moving into like one of the further up spots without even playing the first one, which for me at least is hugely impressive. The other one to mention, which might be a big surprise, but obviously finishing 4th at this event, NIP are currently moving into like a top 3 spot. So it really is all up for grabs. And the most terrifying thought is there's currently teams like Mouse Sports who are not making it to the major. You've got Ents who are not making it as well. North are right on the brink. FaZe kind of right on the brink. And as mentioned, they're another team where, well, if Nico is removed, that's technically another change. So that's more points lost for them. So if there is going to be 1 or 2 more RMR events, there could be teams that are not only fighting to get to a legend spot, but even fighting to get into the major. Like Mouse Sports, Ents, and FaZe not being at a major. Okay, maybe Ents haven't quite been as good as we'd like, but not being one of the top 11 teams in Europe, come on, that would be unacceptable.
All right, we have been informed that we will be cutting to a short, hopefully, break while these issues get resolved, guys. So stay tuned and we'll have the rest of the action coming up. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for your patience while we had some technical issues. So we're hoping, I've been informed that we should be good to jump back into the saddle very shortly, Tom. We have all 10 players on the server, which is great to see. And if you did just join us in amongst that pause, it was 5-2. Astralis went 5-0 up. Heroic won 2 in a row. They've brought the economy down a peg or 2, but Astralis still certainly in this. But obviously, you can't have a pause of that length, Tom, without mentioning that momentum-wise, this is basically reset now.
Yeah, for sure. I think that this is going to be one of those things where it's a completely new match. Like, obviously, we've had some players have to move things around. Like, there's been a few tech issues with S-Tag, and he's basically just completely changed his location. So that in itself, like we mentioned, the positives of Storm basically saying like, now I get to play at the office. I'm playing much better, which there's chances are that's more psychological than anything else. But for S-Tag, it might be completely different where, okay, he's just had to uproot his position of maybe being quite chill and just having a nice time playing some Counter-Strike to, oh God, I've had to move all the way across to a different part of Denmark to try and play a different match. So, yeah, it'll be interested to see if it does continue with the same vein of like now Heroic are on the comeback, or if it is going to be a Astralis looking to break back straight away. Obviously, the reason their money is so good is those first 5 rounds were very, very clean. In fact, a few of them, they didn't lose a single player. And then they had a round where they also saved some weaponry. So although Astralis have lost a couple of rounds and they have been fairly dominant for Heroic, Astralis have not let their money slip.
Well, we'll see if the players are still warmed up. This really is about how versatile and adaptive both teams are. We're back into the action in our Consolidation finals. The winner faces Vitality. The loser is gone. And Device, right off the bat, taking tons of damage outside. Down to 51 from pretty much just HEs. Astralis hold on while Heroic take outside control.
Slightly different iteration of smokes this time. A faster set that allows them to get down in towards the B site. We get to actually see a rotation from Astralis. We'll get one in. It will be S-Tag. Interestingly, he's actually the one playing the AWP, which is not normally the man we focus on with that trusty gun. Device, though, maybe this is why. He peeks in with the rifle, sprays down 2. The flank from Glaive is also very well timed, but he won't actually get anything just yet.
Stone making the most of that momentary lapse in judgment from Glaive going back outside. And the late flank paying out dividends on Heroic. They do even the odds back again. Stone now taking the initiative, pushing into main. Remember, he did get a team kill earlier on, so he actually has 2 frags. He was -1 at one stage. He has been a man mountain today for Heroic. He was massively instrumental in their previous victory against NIP in the first best of 3 of today's proceedings. 23 seconds. Heroic now pulling the trigger, mixing up the pace, accelerating to the site, looking to erode it down. In the next few moments, Dupree round the smoke gets fragged almost instantly, does dink Nico down to 8 HP, but Astralis, after getting the first 2 picks, now very potentially slipping and sliding out of this round. Their economy will be cut short again. Stown won't be taking anywhere near enough damage to justify that push up into heaven, and with that play not working out for S-Tag, they may very well just save here. Astralis can't really go in for this. They have no idea where the remainder of the T's are. They're still pressuring it, though. To be fair to Astralis, they're still at least putting pressure down on Heroic, but now they realize it's too little too late. They save Heroic 3 in a row.
Yeah, this is one that I feel like really should have been theirs. Like, the devices, Heroics were enough to get them a 2-man advantage, at least for the moment, but the trades came back thick and fast. Another strong round from Heroic, and what started off as a 5-0 start, and we were starting to get scared that this was going to be similar to what we saw when Vitality played versus the Danes. It's turned into a pretty close game, and this is something, again, I think needs to be highlighted. Both of these teams have prominent T sides. Like, this is not a weakness for either of these sides. Now, a fast-paced change, something that's loved by the side of Heroic, and something I love to witness as well. 2 instant frags. Your double ops, you say? Is that something you want to be bringing into this round? Well, it doesn't matter. You've got no opportunity to use them. In fact, one of them's already hit the deck, and they're hunting these frags now. They've had enough of Astralis holding onto their weaponry. They're looking to try and shut them out with economy as well.
The perfect counter, and also a perfect play when Astralis may still be dusting away the cobwebs of the technical issues. So really, a great call on Cadian, paying out perfectly. He's still yet to get a kill, but his teammates are doing more than their fair share of the lifting. And on Device, joined alongside Glaive at the back of CT spawn, will be pressured. There's more than enough money for Heroic to run in. They could even lose all 3 of their players at this point, and it wouldn't be the worst case as long as they can take one of these guns away. But Device is holding on. Even with the HE landing on top of him, he still will stand. And that affords them the luxury of another buy. So well held by Astralis, but again, Heroic, that's now 4 in a row.
It's a weird situation. Like, Astralis are consistently being put into positions where they can't actually win the rounds, even with constant buys coming in. This one finally sees a little bit of vulnerability to it, with Dupree actually being dropped down to an SMG. And well, see you later, Glaive. First kill on the board for Cadian, although I'm sure he doesn't really care. This is something he has openly admitted when it comes to his team, is when they feel like they need a change, when he needs to focus on helping the other individuals within his team, he realizes that his own individual form has to be sacrificed. Now we're starting to see some of the Heroic players come back into their own. This is also likely where you'll start seeing Cadian get more frags on the board.
Oh my goodness, that HE. Nuke has landed, and now S-Tag looks to clean up the straggling HP bars. Does get one before he's traded out, but the player advantage maintains in hand of Heroic. After that entry with the AWP, Dupree, MP9, tailor-made for low HP players, but Burrup was healthy. And he remains healthy, still 100 HP. Magisk gets smoked out just as he opens the door, and Device pushes down, gets one, traded out instantly. They heard him burning and charring over the Molotov. Magisk flashing himself into an early grave, and Heroic now have tied it up. The only issue with that for Cadian is he's loving it. He's hype. He's feeling it right now, Tom, and why the hell not? It'll feel great to get back into the matchup, clapping and applauding his teammates. The downside is if he's sacrificing his own gameplay and he's Europa, that's where they could run into some issues, but now he's focusing on himself and he's landing shots left and right.
I think that is one thing that, again, you really have to give credit to Cadian for, is like, I think he knows when it's more important for the other players on his team to be successful. Like, we will see him have quote unquote selfish rounds where he will be dropped an AWP and he'll look to be the hero. Like that's something that he's more than happy to do. It doesn't necessarily mean he's always sacrificing. It's just at the right times. So yeah, he's stepped up when needed in this round. It's going to put 5-5 on the board. And there's still purchases, but they're getting progressively worse for Astralis. Like, we've seen them now have a couple of really solid buys in a row. This is probably the worst one yet.
Yeah, it certainly is. And that really is a credit to just how dominant they were in the first 5 rounds, but how intelligent they've played these sort of save positions when they know that the round is untenable. They back away, save 2 weapons here or there. But as you highlight, if they were to concede this, there's no more buy on the horizon. They'll have to make do with what they can save, if anything. And Heroic, a very real chance to actually gain the lead now for the first time in our best of 3. Nuke the first playground. Bit worried if there was a missed pick from Heroic. Proving us wrong on that mantle, that's for sure. And they've taken a bit of ramp control. They actually don't fully push behind it. Nico's edging his way downstairs. May come head-to-head with Glaive momentarily, checking his angles, making sure all those angles are covered, but in doing so, gives his back up to Glaive and gets punished. The rest of Heroic are anticipating Dupree's position, HE behind the Molotov. He never had a hope of getting any frags. He was trying to bite them out, but May just to spring into action. He's got himself 2 at the back of the site, and Glaive with the rotation takes down an extra 2 for a 3K.
Yeah, very well played from Glaive. Obviously starting off for the rest of the team, but this flank towards the end was what actually won them the round. Magisk also did a fantastic job at staying alive. I do like that little combo though. Like it's an extra $300 expended by Heroic that not only does it obviously do extra damage, but it also leaves you a little bit stunned. So the chance of you actually getting out of the Molotov is even less likely. It's a shame it doesn't really work out for them, but they have stacks of cash. And on the other side, Magisk is now down what is a shotgun. Device, however, is going to be the one to get the opener, but Teslas has been able to take position over him. It doesn't seem to matter, though, with Device landing almost every single shot he's given. S-Tag tries to spray them down and does a hell of a lot of damage, but the bomb is going to be planted. Well, that's money secured at least for Heroic. The round, however, looks unlikely.
Does look unlikely, but it's not as if there's a ton of incendiaries or HEs that they can burst back into the site with. So Stone and Burup's low HP may not end up mattering a huge amount if they can get those crisp one-taps into effect. Down though, XM is tailor-made for these kind of incursions. And will be invaded again. Burup using that 20 HP to devastatingly strong effect before Dupree spins around, takes him down. Check the time. It's low. Cadian could feasibly pull this one off. Spray's not on point, though. He gets punished. It's super close, but Astralis will just about get the defuse.
One thing that hasn't changed from last time on Nuke, sure, Dupree's not quite as stunning as he was last time, but Device, dear Lord. The man's on 13 kills. It's easy to forget the early streak was a lot down to him performing to an incredibly high standard. And sure, there have been a few rounds where he's just been saving the AWP, but hey, it's worth the save. 7-5, tactical pause taken from Heroic. I think it's always going to be the case, especially on Nuke, that your focus of your pauses should be on the T side. That's where ultimately as an in-game leader, you're going to be able to have the most impact. Whereas on your CT side, sure, you'll probably have setups. You'll have ways that you counter certain things. But unless things are going atrociously wrong, you're probably just going to be sticking to mainly default rounds. So this is where, I guess, Cadian earns his big bucks. This is where he gets his paycheck, earns his worth within the team, because after what has been a decent streak back to get them in, still not quite up as high as they would be. Also, Tesla's having a bit of a quiet start to this match. Like, sure, we mentioned how good Storm was earlier in the day, but Tesla's, especially in that third and final map, was someone who came up alongside him, and Cadian, in fact, to basically drag that one home versus Nip.
It's an interesting part of the interview that I really picked up on with Stown when he was talking to Frankie, where discussing the matchup against Astralis, he said the comms can sometimes be really hectic. It's a really important big match for them. And I wonder, sometimes you forget just how young these players are. They not have a ton of experience when it comes to these kind of situations. You're in a consolidation finals, the RMR, so many points on the line. Does he start to get in his own head? Does he have that clarity to continue to perform? S-Attack, M4 in hand, wielding against Tessis. The first 2 picks go the way of Astralis and Heroic after winning 5 on the bounce. And looking invulnerable in part, and now being brought back down to earth. Storm, though, aggression. We saw him picking up the second AWP on the CT side. We know he has it within him to make this gun shine, but only has 40 seconds allocated to have his impact felt. Borup and Cadian making moves down ramp. S-Attack, after getting the first pick on ramp, has fallen back behind the silo and is eagerly anticipating that this push is very possible. They will look to try and annul his partnership with that site as Stown is faking as if they could be pushing on A, trying to keep some of these players interested. S-Attack, undeterred, his focus is razor sharp and his resolve is up to the task. 8 seconds to play with and the T's have given it up. They look to save. Astralis win again.
They're actually going to keep the 2 AWPs. Like, this was not something they needed to pick up. I was quite surprised, in fact, that Storm, sure, taking it for a moment, maybe to have a peek outside, but to keep it afterwards, that's a little bit peculiar, especially on a map like Nuke, where but sometimes we even say teams don't even need to use 1 AWP. So this is going to be a weird round. In fact, this may be a round that I don't think I've ever seen on Nuke. Is an eco round with 2 AWPs on the T side.
It does ruin any idea or prospect of playing aggressively, because as good as Stown and Cadian are, don't get me wrong here, but it's not really a mobile weapon, is it? Glaive, though, getting one, traded back by Nico, and the T's actually lead by a player in this round. More aggression around the corner. Dupree tries to flick in and gets it done. And that's maybe where having an extra assault rifle, or hell, even a P250 or a deagle could have worked out better, because once Cadian missed, his life was forfeit, and Dupree survives with 3 HP. They're still not out of the woods just yet, Astralis, but at least there's a bit of sunlight between the trees.
Yeah, this is much closer than I ever thought it would be, but I guess when you don't have one on the DT side currently, you have players peeking in with that option. Like, the fact is, if Cadian's able to hit his shot, or even if maybe he just has a pistol in that situation, he probably gets the kill onto Dupree. This is a slightly interesting angle, though. Yeah, I was about to say, if Tessis predicted that, I would have been very surprised. S-Tag still playing aggressively. And now it's left all onto Nico. 1 versus 3. 25 seconds left. The thing is, even saving here, like, sure, you're going to have the AWP for the next round, but it's going to leave a really awkward situation, because he can drop one over. Storm could potentially take the AWP, but then he would have to have an SMG. So either way, there's going to be something in this round that's a little bit off for them in terms of their finances. Either that, or maybe Cadian drops a rifle and he takes the AWP, but I think the Heroic have sort of put themselves into a spot financially that they never really wanted to be in.
Meanwhile, in our other match on the B stream, OG looking like they may very well hold on to this post plant. Excellent work. They moved 12-7 in the lead in the first map against Sprout. Meanwhile, though, a game that has a lot more bearing on the overall outcome of DreamHack. Open fall. Astralis jockeying for position, a chance to get their revenge against Vitality, perhaps, or maybe Heroic will turn this back around on their Danish brethren. Final round of the half, though, as you were kind of alluding to there, Tom, you have a bit of a juggling of weaponry, and Stown is dropping down to a Galil. But at least Heroic have enough to play with, and plenty of utility allocated to them.
Glaive forced out of position. It does give quite a bit of map control available. Odd smoke. I don't think that was intentional, but you know what? Given quite a bit of control over to Device, and Tess says, I don't know if they will have expected him to get this far. This could create quite an awkward situation, because he's managed to bypass Device without him realizing, and Storm, well, he just about gets away with that kill. The problem is, Device is going to get one for free. They've managed to sneak past him, but he's also found a loophole within the defense. And actually, Device has given the information to Dupree that they could have heaven control. They've somehow made this one work for them, and they're starting to clean things up, Vince. It leaves Storm, the only man with a kill in this round for his side. 2 HP, 4 kills, and 30 seconds.
I was going to say an end dream, but honestly, this could quickly turn into a bit of a nightmare.
It is a nightmare.
Yeah, I mean, you painted the picture, Tom. It's bleak at best, isn't it? Even if he can somehow get a plant down with all of the CTs staying together on the upper side, of course, he does have the bomb. He wants to try and nullify a couple of these players down. I love the idea. He can get a plant off the back of this, in amongst the smoke. But again, a single bullet and he's gone. In actual fact, he gets denied, as do Heroic. It will be 10-5 to Astralis after a 5-0 lead and a technical issue, but we'll be back after the break to see if they can convert.
Sharp daggers, cold steel, blood dripping down the wall, blood rushing down the hallway. Ooh, yeah. Take my hand, walk with me. I'll show you silver and gold. I'll show you rubies and pearls. Welcome to the brave new world. Take no prisoners or reach up for glory. Be the ruler of the city. Victory belongs to the brave. Be the hero of the story. Take no prisoners or reach up for glory. Be the ruler of the city. Victory belongs to the brave. Belongs to the brave, brave. Got to be stronger, brave. Got to be great, brave. Got to be strong now, brave. Victory belongs to the brave. Be the hero of the story. Take no prisoners or reach up for glory. Be the ruler of the city. Victory belongs to the brave. Take no prisoners or reach up for glory. Be the ruler of the city. Victory belongs to the brave. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Got to be stronger, got to be brave. Oh, yeah.
The Battle of Denmark, and indeed potentially the world's best, continues and rages on. Astralis have the upper hand, 10-5 lead moving through onto the T side. And Tom, I know you've mentioned this a couple of times, but it's not as if this will get any easier for Heroic, because Astralis' T side is pretty damn good.
Yeah, and this is their pick. Something also to mention just slightly, we're very lucky. We've got the 3 best European teams. Oh my God! Okay, Device. Take the scene. You've got my attention, that's for sure. Let's see what he could do with it. There's a reason you've dropped this guy a P250, right? Like, that was ridiculous. Thankfully, Cadian's come along and said, okay, that's quite enough of that. And even gets 2 back himself. They've made this pistol round very interesting indeed. And Barup has spotted them rotating back towards the A site. In fact, they run into him once, he comes back round and they run into him again. He really is playing a game of ring around the rosy, and he's actually going to be there once more. Hashtag finally puts him down. It's like there's two of him. There's twins of Barup that are both trying to fight in the server at once, but eventually it's left onto Tessus. A poor game from him so far, 2-14. Someone we need to see step up if they are going to make this grand final. A pistol victory might be enough to do it, but they're both waiting around this corner. He needs 2 quick taps, and instead, Glaive is going to close this. I love that cam. It's basically just viewing nothing.
Yeah, I mean, maybe at this point, Tessus, turn the light on, Chief. Maybe that would have an improvement on the performance. But yeah, I mean, he is a great player, and that's one of the main reasons that we highlight it, because it really is quite eye-catching. Don't expect to see him down in the doldrums there. Incredible aim, incredible player, but he's just not shown up yet. S-Tag did nearly 400 utility damage.
I was going to ask for that stat because he had 2 like ridiculous nades earlier. Maybe Tessus is just like doing like every time he gets a kill, he gets to light a candle in his room. Too much?
That would explain why the room's so dark, Tom. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Tessus. I'm a big fan, I swear, but I like being mean sometimes, as most people do. Nonetheless, we are going to see an investment. Now, I mentioned this earlier in the tournament, something that I didn't want to see carry over from Asian Counter-Strike, which was the 4Ds. And it came true. It was Karrigan. He gets 3 kills with the Deagle. We'll see if the curse has still continued. Can Heroic pull something off?
Cadian, the scout wheel has already been tagged tons. There's a good flashbang, but it's affecting his CTs just as much as the Ts. Nico, so confused and bemused, he actually tries to 1-dig his own teammate down in secret. And in doing so, gives his back up to S-Tag. An awkward start, but it seems that Astralis' superior firepower is now coming to the forefront. And it was Cadian who was tagged first. He still stands alongside Tessus, who's making moves up via Squeaky and Vent. He has also been dispatched. And it looks good for a 12-5 lead with Cadian trying to save the scout.
Yeah, it may not seem like the greatest save in the world, but obviously with the amount of damage he can do with tags and then give his teammates an opportunity in the next round with the USPs. It would be heartbreaking if this continues, though, for Tessus, because this is not the norm. Obviously, he is one of the newer members of this roster, the rookie, if anything, but he's not even the youngest on the team. That's how ridiculous Thorn has been. He definitely might be just crumbling under the pressure. It's not something I expect, though. I think it is just one of those maps, and as we've sort of mentioned, like one thing that Heroic can definitely do is come back into things. It was a straight-up dome as well.
Teammates like, cheers, mate. Like, what have I done to deserve that? I'm trying to help you out here.
It's like the right-click knife in the back when you're playing MM. It's like, why have you done that?
I now have 70 HP. Thank you. Thank you very much. But he had 50 kills in the series against Nip, which is more kills than anyone on Nip had. Glaive onto Nico. It is effectively an eco round. But then you also look at the overall stats on Tessus. Statistically, he is one, if not their best performing player. 1.17 impact, 80 average damage per round. That's more than Device, by the way. So this is a guy that can be an absolute powerhouse. And that's why it catches us off guard so much when he's not performing. Because you know what he's capable of doing. And he definitely is a player that, if they are going to turn this around, not just Nuke, but I mean the best of 3 overall, he definitely needs to have a resurgence. He needs to have Cadian maybe have just a couple of quiet words and encourage him a little bit. You saw Cadian when he was starting to pop off and get kills, applauding his teammates. He looked really hyped, really pumped, but now that they've gone down so many rounds, I doubt that's going to be the case. Down at least gets the 1. Maybe they can save a Glil out of this round, but that's basically all they can hope for. Nice shot onto Dupree. 12 HP remains, though. Regardless, Astralis will have a 13th round.
Yeah, interestingly as well, obviously we mentioned the performance of Cadian last time these two teams played. One thing to mention is that Tessis also played poorly for his standards in that match as well. So it might just be a thing that facing off against Astralis, maybe he just finds it difficult. Obviously, it is Astralis, so I think a lot of people do. But also something that Estag mentioned when he was even playing within Heroic is that within his country, it is pretty much a thing that you just want to play for Astralis. Even when they weren't the best team in the world, that's what everybody thinks. It is the team to play for, so you never know. There might just be an added thing there for him. I'm hoping it won't be the case throughout this series. And well, if they are going to make any sort of resurgence, this ragtag buy is going to have to be a successful one. Utility already looking poor after just 30 seconds gone on the clock. And more worryingly is how much ground Estag has been able to get this early on.
Huge kill, though, on Heroic, taking squeaky control, making it theirs. Stout trading up to the AK. Still going aggressive as well. Love this. Absolutely love this play. So many teams against Astralis retreat into their shell and just hope for the best. But Heroic are taking the initiative, trying to make Astralis a little bit more uncomfortable, playing the mind games. But this could backfire. He goes out one too many times, and he's been punished, and that gives a chance for Astralis to get back in. But the door's been closed, and it's Burrup that slams it shut with his M4. Device and Estag with 38 seconds, trying to retrieve the bomb and also the round. Device, though, does go into Burrup, and with 30 seconds now on a 2-on-3, this is still winnable on Astralis. But Device actually backing away to spawn. He may not agree.
Yeah, there's still an awful lot for them to do in this case, and well, it seems like they are going to be just saving the weaponry they have. It confirms a buy for the next round, so if they don't think they're going to be able to do it, it's definitely worth just keeping that weaponry forward. And for Heroic, it gives them at least a little bit of a breather. They will have enough to juggle some weaponry around and at least invest back into this one. But for Astralis, they've got rounds to play with. They don't have to risk everything. They're not in a situation where they have to try and just take all-out risks for no reason. And even though, if anything, I would have loved to see it happen, especially with how well these two players have been performing. Like Device currently 19-7, and Estag as well, 14-5. They have been two of the highest performing players on Astralis, but the reason they are so dominant is the fact that everybody on their team has been impressive so far.
Wall of smokes has been built up outside. Down this time through the smoke, and it's Estag that's on the receiving end. Device while flash, still connecting the dots onto Nico. And that offers up a little bit of outside control. Down, not only with the opening pick, but doing a lot of damage through that smoke. And Cadian comes in again. Tessis does strike onto Magisk. And it seems like Heroic is starting to awaken, but Stown's been caught by Dupree.
Could be around for him to at least gain back a little bit of confidence. Device is going to go walking in. That's a second freebie. The 2 kills he's got are relatively simplistic ones, but they make those stats look a little bit better. And although that sounds silly, obviously there's always the thing of like, you should have your tab unbound no matter what. I think you're going to know that this hasn't been the best of games. Dupree, though, looking to be a little bit slimy in this round. Sneak his way through behind. The problem is bomb control is there for Heroic, so no matter where he comes from, there is going to be somebody keeping an eye on that angle. 30 seconds left. He has an awful lot to do, but Cadian, this could be one for free. He's going to go looking for the second player. The first one is for free, but the time now is ticking, and instead Dupree's going to do what Device did in the last round, say, thank you very much. I'll take that AWP into my hands. And you know what? You're not going to even be able to afford one, I don't think, for the next round. Maybe Cadian will actually have enough, but it might be a little bit more awkward than they would have liked.
Counter-terrorists win.
I think Dupree wanted that shank kill. The only reason he didn't go for it is because his back was to the wall, and it's always awkward in those kind of hitboxes. I would not have been surprised if he went for the knife, but Tessis, 2 big kills, massively impactful, and Astralis decide to drop a tactical timeout. They know this is an integral fulcrum point in this game. If they are successful, Heroic in real trouble. But if Heroic win, it's another reset, and they're on the fast track to potentially 10 rounds. It looks like OG have converted the first map lead on Train. They take it 16-14, incredibly close against Sprout.
I have to say, like, there's been a few teams that have surprised me for multiple different reasons. Obviously, I was a bit disappointed to see Mousesports go out so early, but they were in the group of death. Also, G2 not quite having the tournament I would have liked to see from them, but we know that roster changes are likely going to be coming. Sprout, for the other reason, I think they've been really impressive for a team that, like, if you go back a few months, we're basically just fighting in the likes of MDL. They've now come on to the back-to-back tournaments and actually had a few upset victories against teams I didn't necessarily expect it. So if they can keep it up, I really look forward to the future of that squad.
Force Spy comes out, Cadian swatting away Glaive in midair with the AWP. Excellent flick across. And Tassis is playing up close. Smoke into his eyes. But he can hold position and allow Cadian now to rotate. I say hold position. He's actually pushed behind the back of them. And another 2 kills for Tassis. He could be in for more, but Magisk on the drive-by takes off his head. It's at the cost of 90 HP. The bomb was dropped. That's information. Down wants the knife. He wants the shank, but the vice spins around. He saves himself the embarrassment, but he will not save himself in terms of his life. He goes down. And keep in mind, this was a force buy for Astralis. They have no money left in the bank.
I love the audacity to do that to one of the probably the best players ever to touch Counter-Strike, and you're sat there going, right, if I jump up on one box and then jump up on the second box without him seeing me or making any sound, I'll be able to knife him. Like, I appreciate the attempt. Lightning fast shots coming out of Cadian this round, though, and this is what we like to see. Like, even if this map now slips away from them, at least we're seeing some of those individual plays which make this heroic roster so exciting. The other thing, though, is this is now not that far away. Like, we still give this over slightly to the CT side, so Heroic are definitely not out of this. And if they can start to gain momentum, we know that they have probably the greatest cheerleader of all time in the form of Cadian. He'll be keeping everybody's morale up. I think that's one added thing that a lot of teams don't necessarily have. That's why I actually have quite a lot of respect for someone like NeilM, because he gets like good plays out of players that, well, a lot of the time get down in the dumps. So you've got him screaming behind you and he'll get you rolling. And while we're seeing some of those players step up, the last 2 rounds for Tesses have been better than the rest of the map, even just statistically. So if he gets going, Storm continues, Cadian starts hitting a few shots. Who knows? This might not be done just yet, Vince.
Definitely has that air of a comeback about it, doesn't it? Stout outside, he's really started to deliver another 3K. He pinces in onto Tag. Device has the right idea with a D, but just can't get any of them to land. And Stout with a 4K. And yeah, it's almost like this infectious enthusiasm. You can't help but be affected by it in a very positive way. You can see smiles on the face of Stout there as the camera cut to him. They're starting to enjoy this a little bit more. And why not? They have Astralis against the wall. They're turning up the heat.
It was mentioned by the desk earlier who they'd love to be playing with. Potter said Stown, and I can understand that. She might not get to AWP as much as she used to, if that's the case, because he's pretty mean with one. I think I'd take Cadian. I think I'd play much better with Cadian. Like, bigging me up. Barup, though. Gonna meet a nasty fade, but here he is again! It's a TK in the mix, but Storm will claim 4. It is a ridiculous round from him once again, just spraying down the investment from Astralis, and they're going to need a moment. They're going to need some time to reset after that one. The young star is coming up once again. And again, we see some slow starts initially for Heroic, but this man today has not had a single bad map.
He had 73 kills in a best of 3 with 2 very one-sided maps earlier against NIP. With ADR off the charts, with a rating off the charts. And now he's doing it against Astralis. This guy is a real threat to be reckoned with. And certainly one for the future.
Fun plus Phoenix. Sorry to cut you off, but just imagine turning down the opportunity to sign even just him. They had that in the bag. That might be one of the worst decisions in Counter-Strike history. And Heroic are probably just sat there going, well, I'm glad we didn't sell this team. That would have been a severe undersale as what has become one of the best rosters in Counter-Strike over the last few months.
Great bait and switch. Cadian and Tessis lock down ramp. Minimal investment on Astralis, but absolutely one of those situations where another Danish player has been overlooked. We mentioned North doing this a bunch of times in the past. But he is grabbing the attention right now, and no one can really deny the guy's ability. Device tagged and fragged by Nico, and Heroic have drawn this back to a 2-round deficit. Astralis, it feels like they haven't won a round in forever at this point.
I feel like someone needs to hire whoever was like the talent scout for Fragsters. Because I feel like that they'd done some pretty solid work. Bear in mind, for people who don't know about Fragsters, that was a team that had Refresh, Dragonfly, who is Stoun's brother, Stoun himself, and Bubsky, and also Torben as their in-game leader. So 3 of those players are still like high up within the pro scene. 2 of them are arguably some of the hottest property in all of Counter-Strike right now. So whoever was the person doing the talent scouting for that team, give them a job, get them to find some more Danish players, and you could be making, well, you could be making one of the best teams in the world in the future. I'm just putting it out there. Whoever it was, I'm not sure who, they did a fantastic job because they have helped build Danish Counter-Strike.
Well, the godfathers of CS for quite a while, Astralis, is still in this game. Just because the momentum hasn't been working in their favor, we know at a moment's notice, a click of some fingers, and they can get straight into this, and they can finish this map off. So Heroic, a bit more jovial, a little bit more relaxed, but do not lose focus, do not lose concentration. Nico starting to make a move outside. 3 players up close. It looks like they really want to fight for this. But they decide to back away instead. We're not going to see any spray up through the smoke this time. The bombs actually drop just behind lobby. Cadian, different angle. His approach, untenable, goes under the radar, playing incognito. And now he snatches in for the opening pick, and once more, Heroic have the advantage. Once more, maybe they can bring Astralis down to their knees, and once more, Stoun is delivering. Burp on the cross. Glaive was never checking that angle. Too many other ones for him to watch out for, and it not only could be a round, it's going to be a clean one. They only lose 1 player in the process.
If you're an Astralis fan right now, I think you're quaking in your boots. This has been a pretty decent streak of rounds coming out of the side of Heroic. In fact, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure this is 7 rounds in a row. Well, Cadian's mentioned it in the past. He doesn't like the storyline of them being an underdog. They started off in this map falling a little bit flat. They're anything but. The nades coming through, and Tessis, he started to rise to the occasion. He had just 2 kills in the first half. He's already got 2 in this round. He'll eventually be put down. The rotation comes in, but Device again. He hasn't been stopped. Whether or not the team has been succeeding over the last few rounds, he at least is still up there. Even still, though, this round should not be possible. They're waiting patiently for the rotation to come in, but realistically, in their current state, a chance of a victory seems impossible. Device gonna try and do it alone. He's connected. Another Deager just needs 1 more to potentially steal the round, but he eventually falls. It's on to Big Brain himself, looking for a 200 IQ play, but instead he walks right into the hands of Cadian. It's close, and Device is still kicking, but the rest of Astralis have fallen deadly silent.
Saw glimpses of brilliance with Device's Deagle, and this would have been his 4K. So close on those couple of shots. Dangerous game of whack-a-mole, but now Heroic, you were spot on. It was 7, now it's 8. 8 unanswered rounds on their CT side. There are money booming. For the rest of this half, regardless of what happens, they will have buys. There is no easy gimme round for Astralis in sight. They have got to come out swinging. They've used their tactical timeouts. They're out of options. They're running out of time. They need to get some entries, Tom, because it feels like they've been on the receiving end of like the last 7 or 8 rounds, losing the first player outside, getting AWP'd, getting sprayed by Stoun, just never really getting a foothold, and now he's changing up his angles again. Haven't really seen too many aggressive moments here. Cadian flashed through, not giving his position away, goes in for the peek. This could be a huge moment in this matchup. Sees the trajectory of the grenade. Down moves in again. Spray is good for one, and he also dinks Magus, who survives on 15 HP. That incendiary will keep him at arm's reach and allow Cadian to stay outside a little bit longer.
Astralis have had to change their play. This is something that just wasn't going to work. They're going to try and pressure Tessus once again. He's managed to find a decent angle, but has to just retreat. Manages to get back down the ramp, and the chase is on. Astralis, they smell their prey, but what they don't realize is he's backed them into a trap. Cadian now waiting with the AWP, and with 30 seconds left, even a few slip-ups coming in. Pressure pushed onto this A site, and Nico's waiting for it. They have a crossfire setup. In fact, 2 players just waiting down below. They read this perfectly, Vince. It's left all onto Device once again. He has 12 seconds, and it's turned into a save. At every turn, Astralis meet a heroic stack. They played that round to perfection, and now they take the lead.
Cadian is living in Astralis's head rent-free. He knows every single move they make before they even realize it. This is some exceptional Counter-Strike on Heroic. They were 5-0 behind, 10-5 behind at halftime, 13-5 behind, and now they lead. We said this the other day, Tom. It doesn't matter how long you trail as long as you end the map ahead. That's all that counts. And Heroic now 2 rounds away from converting, and the buy from Astralis is rough. Only 2 players have utility, and only 1 smoke left.
This is the thing with Astralis, though. No matter what the situation, they can steal a round from you. No lapse in judgment is allowed for Heroic at this point. Their Danish counterparts are one that they're not going to take lightly. Nico is prepared, but the Molotov will force him off the angle deep enough that he can't reface the S-Tag's position. They expect it. They're waiting for that man. They face off and take him out of the question for this round. 4v5. Nice shot from Dupree, though. They might need a little bit of magic from him right now. He's definitely not been as impactful as previously, but be honest, I put that down to what is a massive resurgence from the Heroic side.
It is Down that has been put a peg into the grave here, which is significant. He has been one of their heavy hitters. As you highlight, it's not just been a one-man show. He's had a supporting cast. The likes of Tess is standing up. Burup's had some big moments. Cadian's been flicking left and right, had some really, really big rounds. And with 22 seconds, Astralis need to start making a move. Nico narrowly misses out the head. That could be costly. It's Device that still stands and actually drills him through the wall in the head. And with that pick, that should be the round going the way of Astralis. And you go back to the what ifs. What if Nico carves his head off when he had the opportunity in control room, Tom? That could have been the round. That could have been the map.
Well, yeah, I saw him looking towards the glass, and now obviously the glass does sort of shroud your vision a little bit, but I do wonder if he saw the scope and just decided to leave him be. Now, if I'm Heroic here, what have you got? What have you got to lose? Your money is through the roof. You're going to be able to buy until overtime. There's no doubt about that. Can you do some damage here? Can you take some weaponry away? Can you even upgrade to an AK? It's a small victory, but it's something nonetheless. And they are looking to try and hold these remaining players in. He goes hunting, but he's eventually shot down. No real extra damage done, and we go back to an even scoreline. Now, I'll bring you back to the very beginning of this tournament. It is fitting that it comes right through to the end of it as well. The last time these two teams played, there was a Vertigo map that went 28-24. That was the opener of the series, which Astralis went on to win. Heroic are going to want to try and steal this one away from them. This was a pick for them, of course, one that we knew was a risk, even though they beat them last time, because Astralis are more than competent on this map. However, they've made a fantastic comeback, and they get it over the line. This is a huge risk from Stown. He's going to get away with it, though.
One of the main ways they got back into this game was off huge risks. Stown with that audacious play through lobby, peaking multiple times. Back at 13-5. feel like a different lifetime ago on Astralis right now, but they are making moves downstairs. They've not lost any early players, which has been the exception to the rule up until this point. They've typically lost 1 or 2 in their endeavors downstairs. Down though, up close, flashbang comes out. M4 is good. He is surrounded by players, but Nico has his back covered, and he still stands for a little bit longer. Even though he's fallen, the damage has been done. It's been briskly and swiftly put into the opposition Danes, and now Magisk in a 1-on-4, no control over the bomb, no idea where all these CTs reside, now knows that Tess is to his right-hand side, takes him off, executes him down, 46 HP, separating Magisk, separating Astralis, and a map point for Heroic, and they deliver. They have a chance to take their map pick after being behind pretty much the entire map.
Oh, we've always seen sheer tenacity of this Heroic roster, but I think you've just seen it embodied in full. They were so far down. I think you mentioned it. Was it 13-5?
Yep.
Since then, they've lost just 1 round. And that was actually to level things up once again. Now, for both sides, there is an investment, but let's be real, one of them is far worse. The CTs with a bank of cash to spare, and on the other side, their Danish brothers are almost asking for a small donation. Glaive left on a UMP, a gun he's happy to use, an S-Tag onto a Galil. They do have the big green on device at least, but that's without armor, grenades, or anything else. However, in this map, that's all he's really needed.
This is an orthodox position on Cadian, but because he's mixed his angles up so many times, Cadian nearly gets punished. Shoulder peeking the angle. And now Cadian, flashed out of position, has to give outside control up to the T's, and Dupree, some aggression. Now turning the tides. Not allowing Heroic to get comfortable, not allowing them to get set up in their positions. Tess is locking it out through lockers, but actually, he gets shoved in there. And Dupree, the bully, now changing his options to go up into heaven and try and rain down some fire onto the defenders on A site. Spotting another player. Not only has he got himself 2 kills, he's got tons of information and device. Having no chill to down, and there's Nico. They just drop down 1 by 1, and they are being perforated where they stand. It's looking good to go overtime again. Unless Burrup can pull off something truly miraculous.
What?
Device 3 no-scopes in the same round?
Okay, then. We're going to need a breather to understand what on earth just happened. We'll be back after a short break to carry this one on.
Spinning round and round till it hurts. Now I'm falling.
Our very first match that we casted of DreamHack Open Fall, Tom, ended the first map 28-24. It could not have been close. A real nail biter, and it's only fitting that we've come full circle. Device, that was the shot that was absolutely absurd. We saw it from Burup's perspective. My God. And now overtime falls upon us, but it was 13-5. Astralis able to reset, make sure they didn't concede the map at least. But many, myself included, thought that this would have already been a done deal. Yet here we stand. All open for business. One team moves to the grand finals to face Vitality. One team is eliminated. Let's find out who picks up the first map.
Well, I said it when we just seen 9 rounds in a row from Heroic. There is no time in any match that you can count out Astralis. The same we could say from Heroic after being that far down. And now all that has gone before is null and void. It doesn't matter. It's meaningless. Now money, it's 10K. Nobody likes it, but we're going to try and not talk about it because it does mean that we can see ecos in overtime. Now Glaive is already going to start things off onto Nico. The aggression outside has been a common theme for Heroic, but over the last couple of rounds, we have seen some adaptations from Astralis. Now they're slowing right down. And the thing is, once you commit to aggression, the only real response is more aggression. And because of that, they're now 2 men down with the same result.
It's down and Nico. Already half being silenced. Kading could flick onto Magisk. I was wondering if he'd come out second best in that, if timing would work against him. Because the smoke was about to clear. 30 seconds. Testis, who moved outside of ramp, now goes back in there again, but it's Dupree, who has found his form once again with the AK. Insta headshot, Cadian through the fire, through the flames, into a stray bullet. And Astralis claimed first blood in overtime, and the smiles are back again.
See, that's the thing. That's one thing I've never understood. One thing I never think I could achieve as a professional player is to throw away a lead that big, win a round, and just be like, that was fun. Like, I feel like I'd be so stressed in those moments. And I guess with Astralis, it's a daily occurrence, something they've been through so many times. But I don't know how you get used to that. And once again, we see an investment, but already the cracks are starting to show a little bit for Heroic. Look at the amount of money they have left. If they lose this round, they go in with pistols and SMGs. Not what you want to see in overtime, but unfortunately, that's the reality we sit in. Hess has had a real resurgence in the second half. Still not quite where he'd like to be, but as said, stats at this point don't matter. It's all about the rounds.
Oh, that's so unfortunate. Device gets saved by the box, and Cadian misses his opportunity to even the odds. Device now with a peek onto Nico. And just as Tom highlighted, the economy on Heroic could not support all these casualties. So this is looking like it could easily be a clean sweep, but Stone, that man, there has been a real linchpin on so many of these rounds on the comeback trail, is still standing alongside Borup, but I feel like it will be that bitter medication that they have to take down here for the save. They can't really afford anything else. Now, maybe if Device gets picked off, that's not that can trade hands. Cadian can get himself back into that one. He was weakened by Tessis earlier on Secret, now gets finished off. So that will be a naught picked up. And that would be a nice bonus. But ultimately, it still will read 17-15. Stown is flicking left and right, getting aggressive again, but that's at the cost of his life. meaning not only do they not save the AWP, but they only keep one weapon going through. Somebody is getting wrecked in terms of their weaponry here on Heroic.
Yeah, I don't even think it's just, I think it's a multiple players are going to be having some real troubles when it comes to the finances in the next round. Tessus, SMG, Barup, shotgun. Now, we saw him pull out the shotgun many a time. Wasn't really very successful. I'm not saying I love a shotgun, Vince. Like, you know me, I do like the XM, but I like it when it works, which I guess most people do. It's not really very exciting if they just get wrecked. The question is, can he make it work? Because the one thing I will say about these sort of rounds is normally you see teams throw in something a bit more spicy when you have problems with your economy. You're going to try and be more aggressive. You're going to try and take real risks in these sort of rounds. And a lot of the time, that's why you see teams actually win these third rounds more often than not, because you have a specific plan in mind rather than just your default rounds. Now, for Barup, he is in a prime position here. But the fact is, Astralis are being very careful. I think they know as well as we do that this is not going to be a good purchase for Heroic. So they're not taking any risks. They're waiting to see if there is going to be the same level of aggression that they had real troubles with in a lot of the CT rounds that occurred and came up for Heroic. This time, though, it looks like ramp is the key to their play. And Tessus has spotted a lot of players. There's a second man, though.
Yeah, and that Molotov forces them out. They're not going to check this angle. Only one kill forthcoming, but Device, Esitag, Dupree, all tagged. Just a split second away from their demise. Barup, the flank. He wants to lock it down with the XM. It was something like 6 rounds in a row where he failed to get a frag last time around, but he may be able to jump in here. Actually goes back to try and pick up the assault rifle, decides against it. Only 3 players left and 12 seconds allocated to Astralis, who look to dip down onto the site. All 3 players weakened. Very close to their demise. Device is still waiting outside. The bomb does get planted. This is where Device's position could be so brutal, but Barup spotted him. This is where he wished he had anything but the XM. Fortunately, though, Cadian comes to his rescue. There's a boost up. A bit of an off angle you probably don't expect if you're the CTs, but they have spotted it, and they have dwindled away Dupree and now Esitag. There will be no clean sweep. It was looking grim, but Heroic do bounce back.
But that's the thing, like, you sort of spoke about the boost that was coming in from Dupree. I'm almost more interested in the boost that was coming in from the CT side on the other side. Like, they were boosting to almost peer back through the gap. I like it. Like, look at this. They're boosting over the top of the boxes. That's really cool. I don't think we'd see that anywhere near as often as the players at the back of the site. But it's exactly what I said, Vince. It's one of those scenarios where teams in those rounds take big risks. They took a gamble on the ramp. It pays off. They didn't waste an awful lot of time for Astralis. And somehow it always seems to happen that those rounds where you actually have a weekend purchase end up working out. Now, this is something we witnessed a few times. S-Tag now picking up that secondary AWP once again. It's one that seems to be very map specific for Nuke, because he does normally play onto that ramp side. The question is, can Cadian work as that can opener and ruin either one of these AWPers' day?
Hefty investment may catch up to them, as it did for Heroic. Just want to highlight as well, by the way, that Stown, 33 kills, around 100 ADR. Nearest player is Device with 82. There is a big discrepancy between Stown and the rest of his teammates. But Device has been head and shoulders above the rest of his team as well. So it really is a 2-horse race, with Support and Cast trying desperately to clamber on to any opportunity afforded to them. But Device neutralizes Cadian outside. He tries to rummage away, but Barup does get him in transition. And now it's back to this longer range skirmish. Tess is with 2 massively impactful entry frags. And Esitag joined and greeted by a Molotov. Cannot make the most of that heaven push. And with 10k being in play to start things off, he has to think about saving. That does bring Heroic back to an even keel.
I know that we always mention this, but please, just not 10k. I know that there's some people are like, oh, well, yeah, you can see auto snipers. I'd rather see that than saves. Like, if it's a choice between auto snipers and saves, I'll take auto snipers every day of the week. Because This is not what we want in overtime. It's a fantastic round from Heroic. Let's not take it away from them, but I want to see this man try and 1v3 with it all. I don't want to see him sat in a corner trying to hold on to it and being slowly hunted by the members of Heroic, who are not going to take it away. It will be kept. The question is, will it be kept by Aztag? Or is he's gonna ham one off, but does he buy another one? Because it didn't work too well in the last round, especially with the pace. This is something we mention all the time with Heroic. They love these fast takes, and doing it in overtime is something that I will always respect the team for, because there is so much on the line.
Got multiple overtimes last time between these two teams. They didn't get it sealed and delivered on the first time of asking. Glaive behind the smoke wall, trying to hear for some information to relay to the rest of the troops. Devices downstairs, anticipating that this wall of smokes may very well yield a push into his angle. He has the perfect angle to deal with this, but it's a bit slow. Considering he's on 31 kills, you really expect him to land that. Aztag and Glaive both come in with frags, but just proving that Device is mortal yet. Magisk, big entry onto Tessus, back into the site again, but not anticipating that he gets peeked simultaneously from the doors and behind Silo. And Glaive has taken this momentary chaos to try and get up close and decon. He needs Dupree to lend him a massive helping hand. He sticks on the bomb. He doesn't have a kit though, and he gets punished. Cadian comes in with a frag. He's been tagged down, but goes for a re-peek and will reap the rewards. Heroic with a map point.
I remember early in this game where we were talking about the sacrifices of Cadian. He was sat down on 2 kills and really not having... No, actually, in fact, he was 007. Well, he's just hit 22. And as said, the stats from before are completely meaningless. He's hit the shots when it mattered. Now, the saves they had previously actually give Astralis at least a buy in this one. It's not anywhere near the best they could hope for. In fact, utility after just 15 seconds is down to a single flashbang of smoke. It mentioned they didn't have a kit in the last round, or they didn't pick one up. They don't have one here at all. So this really is one of those rounds where Astralis have to dig deep. Now, they did it in the last half. To bring it to overtime the first time, they had buys that were definitely not ideal. And well, there is this man again. You mentioned that maybe he should have hit the shot in the last round. He connects it in this, but there's an instant response, and this gives up the ramp. Barup, it seems like he's just going to go barreling onto the site, but there is a man they might not expect to be here so soon. But what? He is saved by the bar. Glaive goes down. It's another man lost. A man advantage kept by Heroics down, however, has fallen. The peak comes back in for Magisk over the last few rounds. He's gone huge. And this time, he gives them an advantage in the retake.
No utility, and the lack of kit starts to come to the forefront. Astralis know they have to mix up the pace. They have to get up close. Cadian, plenty of utility, including a smoke and a Molotov. Borup, push the back of the side, gets triple peaked, and it's Magisk who gets the third. Cadian now needs to rip around the corner, needs to have impact. He's waiting so long. He finally gets the frag, but it's not going to be good enough. And we move to second overtime.
Dear Lord. It's getting sweaty back here, that's for sure. This play from Magisk, unbelievable. Like, the FAMAS shouldn't work like that. I don't care. I can't do that. There is... Yeah, maybe he's a major MVP, but that's not the point. Well, we're right back to square one. As said, everything that comes before is meaningless, and Glaive, this is where he looks to try and get a little bit more aggressive. The smoke wall has fallen, and if anything, that's helped him get away. Now you can see both teams do this. They like to watch the edge of the smoke, start to play around the back of them, because it's a very common thing to try and make plays through these smokes. And in fact, Heroic are looking to do just that. Device is ready and waiting though, and Glaive in fact was watching as well. Nico's at least managed to find one, and he almost finds one through a smoke and the vent. Now, S-Tag has been taken out the last couple of rounds. He needs to do something here. If anything, falling back might be the right play. They've already got a man to the good, and this time he'll escape.
Man to the good, but actually behind in terms of overall HP. Well, you can scratch that statistic. That's no longer the case. Down been dealt a hefty blow. Magus gone 14 HP, really coming alive in these last few rounds. And dupreeh will tag team in with Magus flashbang. Astralis take the lead again. We thought this game would deliver, and so far it has, Tom.
Yeah, I wonder how many we can go for this time. That's the question on my mind, at least. Again, a purchase for either side. And most of the time when it's the T's having the losses, you can expect repurchases. The nade damage already has gone through the roof, and well, Glaive has taken some control. I think they know he's here. They spotted him walk in that direction, so they're starting to try and nade him out of position, but as of right now, they haven't hit him at all. In fact, he's perfectly healthy.
Do they bypass this double-pronged threat? No. Device, just wide peaks, wide swings. If they fully bite down on Device's position, keep in mind that Glaive is laid in wait, cunning, conniving and calculated. Device is still drawing fire to his location, still standing, still delivering. And even though dupreeh has fallen to the hands of Nico, they're still in a bit of trouble. Device just isn't missing now. Making amends from a few rounds ago, but Heroic, sneaking under the radar, are still doing a bunch of damage of their own accord, and Device comes in with his 4K. He's landed 37 kills.
Yeah, it started off as a competition between him and Sound, but over the last few rounds, that competition has only gone in one direction, and well, as said, there's a reason he's one of the best players of all time. A consistent fragger, someone you can always fear when entering the server. And on the CT side, he has been just that. 20-18, Heroic have still had to take some serious concessions going into this round, but it looks like they're going to try and build in to a fast, aggressive play. Magic is already gone, and Testes with a double entry. Make that a third come up for Stown. Device this time will miss, and that might be the end of him. S-Tag, he may be off to Cloud9, but this time he needs 4 for his team. Astralis, at least for the next match or two, is where his home lies, but he's actually walked past. And we did see Stown turn around for at least a second. I have a question that he might have actually spotted his opponent, and look at them all just start to swarm in. It is going to be around at least again the same result, with Heroic taking the third round after losing the first two. It seems like the lower buys still work for them.
It's a team that, simply put, are never out of the fight. So often we've casted them in only this tournament, and we felt like it was probably over. And then suddenly, they snap back into action, they activate. They get it done. Astralis still in the lead, make no mistake, they still can definitely put this to rest. Of course, 22 is the number that they're both jockeying for now. Astralis 1 round closer to that mark. This being the choice of Heroic. Next map would be Inferno. And if we need it, we have the tantalizing prospect, Tom, of a repeat performance on Vertigo, which is the very map that we had multiple overtimes on the very first day of DreamHack Open 4.
Yeah, I'm starting to think that it's a good thing that it's the lovely Scronders doing the grand final, because we could be here all night long at this rate. Device, though, this is quite a bit of ground. Storm, however, waiting for him on the other side. A double AWP thrown in from Heroic. A little bit of a different spice to this round as they've changed things up completely. This isn't something we've seen from them whatsoever, but a gimmick that could steal them around. That's exactly what they need right now. Down the vent they go. There's another AWP there, and the no-scope landed as well, or even the quick scope, whatever you want to call it. It's left on to dupreeh. A 1 versus 4. He's only kept things even so far, so he'd have to hit the 30 bomb right now and just look at them. They're homed in. He's surrounded, and he has 30 seconds left.
He is being swarmed. He does at least have the bomb, and the trajectory to get down to the site can save plant. No one can deny this just yet, but they are going to get very, very close on the approach. Molotov behind him. Needs to stand his ground. He knows every second he stays out in the open is one closer to death. And it's Cadian, the Grim Reaper, that comes in, takes him out, and we're all even again. They'll just delay a little bit more time so they can get as much of the fixings and upgrades for AKs and a couple of extra grenades as possible. Keeping 4 players alive as well in that round. That was sublime.
I do love how I sort of mentioned literally a round ago that it seemed like Device had finally taken the lead in this battle, and then Stown just goes, well, you haven't seen my AWP yet. 38 for him. Reclaiming the top fragger of the server. It is a 2-horse race. Nobody else is even close. The next is 26. The form of Dupree. 11 kills behind the other 2. And while the third overtime, it's not unlikely at this point, Vince.
Oh, it's looking more and more likely, isn't it? We need a team to 2-0 from this point to take us there. Both teams will be able to buy again in the next round, regardless of saves or any of that kind of stuff coming into play. Device entering the arena against Stown, who is peering down into Squeaky, waiting for some aggression. Keep in mind, when they were down 13-5, these are the kind of plays that they were cognizant of. But Stown holds on patiently, passively, and Cadian gets Dupree walking into his crosshair. A repeat performance from the last round. They take the first 2 opening picks. And Astralis now have to play as a trio and look to puncture through into the site. The bomb's also dropped, and amongst all of that, Stown now shows his hand again. He may not have got the kill onto Glaive, but he did so much damage to him that another bullet and he is going to be laid down permanently. Tessis straight back in for another one. Esatag just doing his due diligence to make sure these angles don't have a CT that's found the bomb. And that's really the only thing that is going in favor of Astralis. Everything else is stacked against them. Tessis laid in wait. Down on Glaive. 10 seconds left. Esatag needs to try and somehow clutch this out with no time and no hope. And Heroic with another map point.
You gotta love it. A little bit of door play. And he's someone else that we sort of haven't mentioned too much, but there was a point where, I don't remember the exact stat, but what Tessis was like 2 kills and like, I want to say like 15 deaths. He's had a real comeback. He's up to 18, and while one of the difference makers for sure with a few multi-frag rounds. But this is where Astralis play their best Counter-Strike, up against the wall, pinned into the corner. Fighting out, lashing out to try and survive. That's the spot they're in once again. As Heroic have another map point. There are a few teams that dare pick Nuke. In fact, no, let's change that. There are no teams that dare pick Nuke into Astralis. There is only one team over the last few months that's beaten them, and we're watching them right now in the lead. 21 for Heroic. Another attempt to take this first map and lead into Inferno. Question is, can they finally do it? Because they've had chances already, Vince.
Oh, they've had chance after chance. Astralis, even though they led for the vast majority of this map, when it came down to the wire, it was always them saving map points. Not imposing their will, but just desperately clambering on for extra lifelines. Here comes the play. It could be the final one of Nuke, and Burrup holds on for 2 kills single-handedly, maybe taking this away from Astralis. Mages 1-on-4. He's got the first, but his position is known, and Tessis stands up. Tall delivers the headshot. That's all she wrote for Nuke. Heroic have took their choice.
They have come back from 13-5 down to win it in the overtimes. Of course, there is plenty for the Des to break down, so let's hand it off to them.